Welcome, it's Jim from maverickstar. We're in the man cave, the smallest room in the property, and this is where I do a lot of my electronics in this room. I'm going to be showing you a little bit later a HHO generator and some of the things along the lines with generating hydrogen as an energy source to possibly in the future run a few things. The reason why I've got back into this, and it isn't new, because I've been playing around with these little devices for a long time, just to see how they work. And of course it's fun to generate hydrogen because it makes a big explosion. It's probably one of the most explosive gases when you use electrolysis to smash these water molecules apart for their initial atoms, which is hydrogen times 2 and oxygen, and hence why H2O is water, pretty much one water molecule. So we've got an experiment. I'm just going to quickly show you that here. So on the table we've got a H2O generator. There's an air pump attached to it, and there's also a coil there which you can see in front of it. And the reason why I'm showing you this, I'm going to quickly explain about these things. So I can generate just as much as anybody else, large quantities, or let's say a litre a minute of HHO, or I could split it into just hydrogen and oxygen if I wanted to. You know, this is nothing new. You know, people have been doing this for 200 years, or even longer. But what I'm trying to do here is not only using different electrolytes to encourage electrolysis so that we can produce you know, a usable gas from ordinary water, is I'm looking for not a catalytic, but something along those lines that encourages the fragmentation of that water molecule, something that allows it to happen faster. And that's why a little bit later I'll show you in more detail the HHO generator which I've got producing HHO. Without a doubt, you know, I could ignite it and show you that it is that. I could burn a torch over it and show you that. But what I'm more interested in, I'm not interested in quantities, because if I was, if you've looked into this, then you know that one of the most formidable ways of creating and generating tons and tons of this stuff, well, okay, slight exaggeration, but litres of this stuff is using ordinary scouring pads, stainless steel, and you put them in a sock, and then you wrap the, because these roll out like a sock anyhow, you put a couple of rolls of that inside the sock, then you put a couple of rolls outside the sock. You can roll it up all the way up the sock, dunk that in the water, positive in the centre, negative on the outside, and you'll produce a lot of HHO, but at a lot of amps. And that's what we want to cut back on, and that's what I'm concentrating my experiments on, cutting back the actual power input as opposed to the gas output. So we can generate a lot, it's not a problem. I could build a dry or a wet HHO generator without a doubt. I could produce a litre a minute of gas, which would probably run maybe a small generator or something like that. It's already been done, and I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is actually producing something that on a small scale does it faster, and then you can always upscale it to a bigger thing, and then the principle should work for the bigger thing. So that's what we're trying to do. Why? Because I think we're being held ransom these days to the cost of energy, and you know, this is the answer. Not electric cars, but hydrogen cars that can produce their own hydrogen inside the vehicle and keep the engine maintained with gas or a fuel for the prolonged whatever period of time it's required. Now, like I say, you know, this is something I've messed about with for maybe 20 years. But I've recently got back interested in it because I saw a video that was done somewhere in China, Vietnam, or in Thailand, wherever it was. Some young lad had done a video suggesting that by just blowing air into the system whilst creating HH2 through electrolysis somehow encouraged a catalytic event to happen and more gas was produced. And you know, of course, I test everything. Any of these ideas I keep a keen interest in, and then to a certain point I get encouraged enough to do it myself. So the experiment you're going to see, if you're interested in this, might be worth looking up Stanley Myers, because he's the guy that claimed to build a car that run on water. So using electrolysis and frequency dismantlation of the water molecule, he used frequency to bombard the water molecule, which separated it at a faster rate, he claimed, and got you know, a rewarding amount of hydrogen and oxygen, which he then used to run the vehicle. So what we're attempting to do here is a bit of both. We're using electrolysis, and then you'll see at the bottom of the HH generator, which I'm going to show you in a bit, you'll see it's taped off, but there's a coil going all the way around it. I've got a signal generator over here. I'll just quickly show you. So I've got this signal generator right over there at the far end, so I can adjust the attenuation of the signal going in there. So, you know, just 1 hertz per second is 1 beat, bop, 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 bop. 2 hertz, bop, 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 and then 3 hertz, and it goes right up to a gigahertz. That signal generator does. You can get better ones than that, but we're running the signal generator through the amplifier at the top, and then from the amplifier, just ordinary speaker leads are coming back through down to the cable to this coil here. And I figured through experimenting with this that there is a certain frequency where you can bring a magnet. I've put it in the tube because it's easily rotated in there. There's a little bit of liquid in there as well to lubricate it. But if you put that in the vicinity of that coil, it rotates. Now there's a little bit of a discovery on its own. I don't think many people know about that, but it's probably not new. But if you bring it into the vicinity of the coil, it acts as a motor. So this magnet starts to rotate. If you bring up the frequency, and the frequency I'm using at the moment is somewhere between 400 hertz and 600 hertz. If you want to try this at home and you've got the same equipment, you'll find it does the same. There's about 100 turns on that little coil there, so you can recreate this experiment yourself. The other thing is what we've got here on this. Let me just explain what we've got here. Is obviously you can see the black tape. That's just protecting the coil and holding it from uncoiling. Then we've got tape around inside there. I don't know whether you can see this, and I'm using my computer at the moment, or this little Surface Pro, to show you this. So on the top there of the generator, you can see like little veins. So it's like a radiator, and they're separated, 2 of these little radiators, by probably 3 millimeters. So there's a tiny little gap in between the 2, and because they're in close proximity, we've got some sodium chloride, which is normal salt, in there. What will happen is we've encouraged using the salt, or you could call it electrolyte. What we've done is encouraged the electricity to flow through in between the 2 little radiators to generate electrolysis, which I'll show you in a minute. You know, I'll just flick the switch and you can see it producing the hydrogen gas. In fact, why not do it now? So what you'll see is hydrogen gas being generated off the 2 plates. I've not got the coil connected to the signal generator at the moment, but you can see there are, you know, little bubbles being generated from there. I'm not interested in the quantity of that gas being produced, but what I can tell you now is there's oxygen and hydrogen being produced there at this very moment. I'm not interested in the quantity at this point. What I'm interested in is just encouraging the quantity to increase through different experimentations. So what we've done is we've put a coil around there, and using Stanley Meyer's frequency, or various frequencies, we're just going through the different frequencies up to a gigahertz at the moment. It's a slow process. We're just hoping to stab in the dark at the right frequency where we generate. I'm going to turn that off now for a bit because it gets a bit cloudy in there. And hopefully encourage the rate at which those bubbles increase. That's why we're not going for, at the moment, 1 litre per minute. The experiment doesn't require that. What we require is, by adding additional things to it, we will get a better result. Now, on the bottom of that, you can't probably see it, but right underneath there is just an ordinary rare earth magnet, a round one, like what you get at a speaker. And that encourages the production of hydrogen gas. But what I wanted to show you, and I apologise because I am holding literally like a large tablet at the moment to record this, but it's a bit of an experiment because my other computer is getting a bit tired, the old Veo, and we've gone now from that to the Surface Pro, which I've had for a few years, but obviously the camera's better quality, and the function of it is just better all round. What I want to show you is I'm going to switch on the signal generator and the amplifier up there, and right now there's a frequency of, I'm going to start it off at about 450 hertz, and I'm going to bring a magnet in the proximity of that, and I just want to prove that that is a magnet by using this north and south pole identifier. So bring it into the vicinity of the north pole, you can see it lights up, and when I just move it to the other end of the magnet, it's the south. So just by bringing these neodymium magnets into the vicinity of that, you can see we get a rotation. So I know that that frequency generates rotation of magnets within the vicinity of the coil, right in the centre. So I bring it out, it stops. If I put it back into the coil induction zone, it starts to produce rotation. And I had this running yesterday inside that tank, and I just left it free reeling in there, and of course I didn't realise, this being acrylic and we've got this glass rubbing up against it, it did burr the edges of it. But there's something. So we can use, a naked magnet within the vicinity of a coil in water, and it will generate a motorised effect, which is quite interesting. So I know that it's affecting magnetism to the point of rotation, and what we're trying to do with the coil that's wrapped round inside the HHO generator is just create turbulence or trouble so that it disrupts the the bond between the hydrogen and the oxygen atom. So we know that this generates a rotation at that frequency. There's the magnet rotating in the vicinity of that coil. So that's why I've wrapped the two radiators inside that HHO generator in a coil. So we're just going through the frequency now with the frequency generator over here. The other thing I did was I tested the guy's experiment. I actually fitted an air pump to this, so I'll just switch this back on now, and I'll also hit the air pump. Well, you can see at the moment that there is HHO being generated through there, and if I was to put some ferroliquid in this solution, the bubbles would form. I could easily demonstrate that with a big pop, which hydrogen and oxygen usually make. But I also added the air pump to see whether that was some form of catalyst. I wasn't convinced it would be, but you know what? you've got to try these things, and I've tried many of these things, so I thought I'd give it a go, and nothing happened. But I'll demonstrate this to you with the air pump running. That's the sort of response that we are looking for. That sort of air production or hydrogen production would be perfect. So if we can find a frequency of the coil and also add the electrolysis on there, then, you know, we're halfway there to the battle of, you know, resolving this issue. What we're trying to do is make this more efficient. That's all we're trying to do, is we're trying to find some form of catalyst that helps it produce it faster. I'm going to invest more time in this. I'm obviously over the last few days I've invested money in it to the point I've been buying some you know, other things that we can use for these experiments. Why, you might ask? Why bother? You know, we're being held a ransom to the cost of electricity, cost of energy, and you know, who are the ones that are being most affected by all this? The poor. You know, when I watch videos of people cooking with sticks, literally twigs, in Afghanistan, and having to sell one of the children literally at winter time because they can't afford to keep heating and food in the house, and they earn $1 a day if they're lucky. You know, that is what encourages me to do experiments like this. And you know, I got to 50 there, and you know, I've got knowledge in science. Why not spend now some time trying to invest in a technology that could be freely given to people and help them with these things? Can you imagine how much we could change this world if we come up with a real way of generating hydrogen and oxygen at a very low rate of input? I know this is something that a lot of people have invested many hours. I've invested a lot of time in this, not just this, but you know, I don't think you'll ever find other people with things like what I've got in here. I mean, we've got over there the Bashaka wheel, we've got another generator I built. You know, I've built electric motors so that you can demonstrate how they work, you know, with North and South Pole, and just taking an ordinary motor apart and then demonstrating. I've always found that people have found this quite fascinating, but you know, I've, you know, all sorts of ideas. Trust me, you know, I've made motors with just simple magnets and, you know, applying a bit of power. This is something from Coral Castle. I even built his magnetic wheel. You know, I will try anything, literally anything. So, I'm going to leave it here.